Cody here with daddare.com. Welcome back. If you're new to Dad Dare, I am on a journey where I have dared myself to become and be the best dad that I can be. Today I'm with Jeremy Lang, who is a dad. You have how many kids?
Got 4 kids.
4 kids. We've known each other kind of off and on for a number of years, but recently just connecting more, which has been good.
Yeah.
I'm going to be asking Jeremy some questions today to really try to just glean wisdom from his experience to add into my preparation to become and be the best dad that I can be. You're new here, if you're on YouTube, push the subscribe button all the way in and click the bell so you get notified when we post new videos. If you're on Facebook, hit that like button. And if you're listening to the podcast or anywhere else, just make sure you subscribe and follow along. So why don't we start off with just maybe introducing yourself, give a little background on what you do for work as well as like your family.
Like I said, my name's Jeremy. I grew up in California, and so yeah, don't hold that against me. And then ended up spending 13 years in Colorado, working with a nonprofit organization called Youth with a Mission, and was basically a missionary helping disciple and train young adults to go out into the world and share the love of Christ. So my whole life has kind of been around youth and kids. I started teaching skiing and snowboarding when I was 16 to kids primarily, and thoroughly enjoyed it, loved it, and oddly enough, years later have come back to that and actually been working up at the mountain doing some creative, what I call snow coaching. So I do some life coaching mixed in with doing some on snow, helping kids learn how to ski and snowboard, amongst many other things. We have many different income streams to be able to give us the freedom that we want to be able to do things like homeschool our kids and take them on adventures and do things.
Yeah, and you explained it to me the other day. It was really cool. So on the chair ride up, you're having conversations, which is the life coaching piece, and then as you come down the mountain, you're working on the skiing or snowboarding.
Yeah, so really it's all intertwined, and so being able to communicate with the parents like, hey, what are some things that you want to help instill in your kids? Because I know as a father, sometimes I'll say something and my kids don't hear it the same as if somebody else who they're looking up to and hanging out with says, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, this guy said this, and all of a sudden it's this great realization. And so I can work with the parents and do that, whether it be, realizing that cleaning their room and having a clean room is a benefit to them, not just a chore that they have to do, but helping them really realize why that's a good thing. And then, just being able to work on self-discipline, things like that, and just going down the hill, teaching them how to enjoy the snow, being out there. Sure, it can be cold, it can be, where we live up in Washington, it can rain on us. I mean, you get all sorts of things, but ultimately we get to choose the attitude of of the day that we're having. And so even though we may be experiencing some things that aren't maybe what we would prefer, we still get to choose to have a good time and enjoy that to the best of our ability anyway.
How many kids do you have? You already said that, but maybe give a little bit of background about your family.
Yeah, so I got 4 kids. My eldest is 15, just learning to drive. That is exciting, thrilling, adventurous. Like, there's a whole lot of words you can put in there with that. A little scary, but super fun. It's an exciting time for sure. Our next daughter is 13. Then we have 2 boys, 10 and 6. And you can kind of see the ages kind of start to spread apart a little further as we went along. For our family, one thing that I did is I wasn't sure how many kids to have written down anywhere. There's no real books on like how many kids to have, what's the formula. And so I actually did my own polls, and I went around and asked a bunch of different people that I loved, that I trusted, that I was in contact with, and just kind of asked them, okay, how did you know? I got all sorts of different answers of how they knew. But one thing that kept coming up is talking to them, 9 out of 10 of them would say, given the chance to do it again at your age, and this was when I was in my early 30s, they were saying, I wish I would have had more. That's why we continued to have kids. And then after our fourth, something just kind of clicked and we just knew we were done. Before that, we just didn't have that completion feeling, and we're kind of like, oh, should we have more? And we kept debating, and my wife was like, yeah, I'm ready, let's do it. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm tired. All these poopy diapers are tough, like sleepless nights and all these things. It's in that moment, it's one of the hardest moments when you have a newborn kid up till like 2, and then when you get past 2, things start to, you kind of like see the light at the end of the tunnel in some ways.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh. And then to think about, okay, we're going to purposely sign up to do that again is a very hard decision. So hearing that from so many other people helped me to be able to see, okay, if I choose to stop now, in a way it's selfish because I'm saying, I'm tired, I'm done, and I don't want to do this anymore. At the end of the day, choosing to do that was also one of the most unselfish things too. It was interesting how it all worked out, and I mean, I can't tell you how many kids to have, but it's one of those things. A lot of people did say, you just know, you know. And this was from people with 1 kid, some people with 2 kids, and you know, and they were just like, yeah, we just kind of knew that it was time. And some of the ones who didn't say that, who were just like, yeah, we didn't really know, we just kind of made the choice. Those ones were the ones that said, we wish we would have had more.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've also heard big decisions like when to get married, like when to start having kids. A lot of people have said like, well, you just kind of know. Like you come to a point in life where you're just like, all right, this is like the next thing. That's always what people ask too. It's like once you have 1 kid and then that kid's been there for a while, people are like, so are you guys gonna have another kid? Everyone's always asking
always there.
The golden question, like what's next, you know.
Yeah.
And so yeah, pretty interesting. You mentioned self-discipline and talking to kids about that. For you, how has self-discipline played into being a dad?
You know, even growing up, you know, like self-discipline is such a big thing, and if you don't learn to discipline yourself, then what happens? Somebody else has to discipline you. So being able to do that yourself, I think, goes a lot easier. You know, they say there's 2 kinds of people: the people who learn the hard way by having to like do it all themselves, or the people who will learn from others' mistakes and like glean from the wisdom of others. And I've been in the camp of, I way prefer learning from others and to glean wisdom from a multitude of sources. And so, I mean, that's kind of how I came up with how many kids to have. You know, it was like, all right, let me look at this. And so, but yeah, discipline it's not easy, but it's I wrote down a bunch of stuff that I've kind of learned throughout the years, and a bunch of things that I would put into a book potentially when I get there.
Yeah, and I was reading through these before we started talking, and there's some really good points in there. Did you come up with them just on your own, or you know, at one certain time, or?
No, it's been one thing that I work on doing is disciplining myself to keep, in a sense, a journal. You know, on my phone I have a little thing labeled notes, and just being able to just note within there and just putting in little things here and there as they come to me, because in this day and age things escape us so quickly. We get squirrel, right? Oh, you know, like,
yeah,
and then it's gone. So if I don't write it down, I've found that it just gets lost, unless it's like super good and maybe God brings it back to my attention, but otherwise it's gone. And it's like, oh, I had this really good idea, or somebody said this really good thing, what was it? And you go back to them, and half the time they can't repeat it the way that you heard it. And so being able to just write it down, take a quick little note is super helpful for me.
Another thing I was gonna mention was I've grew up snowboarding and skiing, and I remember those times myself on the chairlift. And if I was with like my dad or some other relative, or if a youth pastor, like they took us up, we would always have just really solid conversations on the chairlift, and it's such a unique environment where you can't really go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, because you would get injured pretty bad if you jumped off. But you're basically stuck on this chair with these other people, and it's a great place to have conversation, and it's also a limited amount of time, so like that it's coming to an end. I meet random people when I go skiing and snowboarding, and I always try to have a conversation with them on the chair and just kind of figure out how they're doing. And I've always been surprised at how much people open up. Right. Like people I've never met before. Yeah. And all of a sudden they're just sharing deep stuff. Yeah. And it's like, all right, there's something about just sitting on the chair together. And
yeah, one of the little girls that I help coach, we have come up with another name for the chairlift, and we call it the sky couch.
Oh, nice.
Because in a way, that's what it is. It's like, hey, welcome to my living room. Like, take a seat on the couch and let's just experience a little life together. Yeah. And just hang out. And so it's fun. Yeah, just the conversations we have, the imagination of kids is just so much fun. And just we talk about snow dragons and like all sorts of like crazy. We make up stories on the way up the chair and just dream together and just have fun. And and I think sometimes you get into those deep conversations and you're like, whoa, didn't expect that, or like but
it's rich and
it's good.
And your kids go with you too, right?
So one of the things that I've really worked hard on doing is being able to have most of my things that I do for work and my income streams to be able to bring my kids involved, have my kids involved in it in some way, shape or form, because I love them and I want to be around them. I want to spend more time with them. Yeah. And so when I go up and do snow coaching, most of my clients have actually asked that my kids come up. They're like, when are your kids coming up again? Like, we love it when your kids are here. And it's just so good. And they are able to just learn from my kids. The ones who I'm helping coach, they're able to see another kid doing it, and there's something about seeing another child similar to their age doing something versus somebody who's a lot older saying, you need to do this, or this would be a good idea. It's like, what do you know? But when they see somebody else their age doing it, all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. And I think that's one of the big reasons why it's so important as a parent to know who your kids' friends are, because friends have such huge impact and influence in our lives. We talk about how, or I don't know if you guys have heard the study of you become like the top 5 people you hang around with most, right? And so that goes for our kids as well. And hopefully my wife and I are two of those people, right? That our kids are hanging around with most. But so then there's a few more that are going to be involved in that. And who are those kids who they're gleaning from, who they're around? And if we don't know who these kids are and know their parents, then who knows what's happening, right? And so being able to, and I remember my parents doing this. They'd be like, yeah, we don't know that kid, so we'd like to meet their parents, and we'd like to maybe have dinner with them first before you go have a sleepover at their house, or before you guys go off and do this like crazy thing or whatever it is. And at the time it was always like, come on, Mom, come on, Dad, like, but looking back on it now, I'm like, man, I'm so thankful that they did, because there was a couple of those kids that weren't good kids, but they were doing something that was going to be fun and cool, so I wanted to do it. I didn't really understand that just because what they were doing was fun and going to be fun and an adventure, who they were as people wasn't who I wanted to become, and it wasn't who my parents wanted me to be like. It's just a simple truth,
Yeah, it's good.
They always say garbage in, garbage out, right? So whoever we hang around with most, if it's garbage, that's what we're going to end up reproducing. But if it's good and they have good character and, they have love, joy, peace, like we talk about the fruits of the Spirit, then that's what's going to be received and that's what's going to be outputted.
Yeah. There's the saying that it takes a village to raise a child, and I don't whether or not it takes a village to raise a child. The village ends up raising the child, so whoever
Right.
the child is around, like they will have an impact on the child. Do you think that's
Sure.
true?
I 100% agree. Yeah, when we were in missions with Youth of the Mission in Denver, we lived in a community, and within that community, you know, even though we lived off of the campus, we still did life together almost 24/7, and especially when we did overseas trips where we would go and do these missions, these, you know, doing humanitarian aid, helping out build playgrounds, rebuild playgrounds in Bosnia, to, you know, helping out orphan kids in South Africa, to, you know, kids on the street in Mexico. Like, you're doing life with them 24/7, and these guys are a part of your life. And, you know, I remember a story when we were in Bosnia, and our daughter was probably around 2, and she was well, maybe less than that, because she was still potty training, and they got her to say stuff like, "I'm a thug." And so she could like barely talk, so she had to be like less than 2, and she's saying like, "I'm a thug." And then the next thing we know, they were teaching her, when she had messed her pants, to say, "I dropped a load."
Wow.
And so we have it on video, this like cute little girl who's just like, "Mommy, I drop a load." And we're just like, "What? Did you really just say that?" But I mean, it just goes to say, like,
Yeah. Influence.
the influence, right? And it was cute, it was funny, we laugh at it now for sure. It wasn't degrading, it wasn't like a horrible thing, but, you know, we had to be careful with some of the stuff. It's like, no, don't teach her that. Like, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But that one was just kind of funny.
Right. So the influence can be positive or negative.
Influence can very much be positive or negative. It depends on the character
Yeah.
of the people we choose to be around.
Yeah. Let's jump into the list that you have, and if you could just read through them, I think that would be super helpful for people to hear them. There are a lot of just like very pinpointed bullet points, and then we could talk about some of them at the end, or if any stand out to you.
One of the things I was writing was just saying, like, being a dad is the hardest job that I've ever done, but at the same time it's the most rewarding. As a dad, we need to never stop learning. Be open to the fact that our kids will teach us things. Man, I could tell you story after story of the ways that my kids have taught me things and already changed my life. Waking up early before your kids get up is a routine that I'm still practicing. Don't actually do it all the time, but the times that I do usually go better. Being able to get up, have some time, wake up, kind of start my day before they get up and are already like, Dad, make me breakfast. Dad, what about this? What are we doing today? I want to... All these different things, just getting your day kind of going. Being able to prioritize your day the night before. Being able to put those things together. Making a list to be able to go through. Some of you guys probably list guys, some of you guys maybe not. But being able to put down a couple bullets of like, okay, here's my main priorities. But then also within that, leaving what we call margin, room for error, room for your kids. And so for me, working from home a lot and then doing other jobs and different things where they get to be with me, making sure that I have that margin to where they can come in and don't really feel like they're interrupting as much. Although knowing that healthy boundary of when it's work time, when it's go time, and when it's not. We're all born selfish. That's just our innate nature. The challenge is to look at those times when we do choose selfishness and the times where we choose to be selfless. Which do we end up getting a greater reward from? And hands down, the times that I am able to and fight to be selfless is when I get the most reward. Which seems kind of counterintuitive, like, oh, we're focusing on myself, like this should be good, right? But in the end, it doesn't pan out. No one goes into marriage thinking of the day they'll get divorced. And I have a lot of friends who have been divorced, and it sucks. It's a sad thing. It's not, nobody ever, like I said, nobody ever goes into it thinking that. But one way for my wife and I that we've worked on is just kind of making sure that we're every day like putting forth that other person first, putting my kids first, putting my wife first, and even putting my wife before my kids, because if that relationship isn't healthy, the other one is definitely not going to be healthy. Keeping a journal on your kids, my kids are always asking me, Dad, tell me a story about when I was little. Tell me a story when I was this age or that age or something. And when did this first happen and things, and it's just like, I don't know. I don't remember. And sometimes I do, and I think that's why storytelling is such a lost art and such a valuable thing, is when we continue to tell these stories over and over, we remember them, and when we remember them, they live on, right? And so being able to take note and make a little journal of that for our kids. I remind myself that I am the best dad ever, because that's the truth. I am the best dad ever to the ones who matter most. I'm not your dad. I'm only my kid's dad, right?
Yeah.
So if I continue to remind myself that I am the best dad ever, and I believe that, I'm going to live that out more, right? Remind myself that a lot. I do believe my kids believe that. I was actually just talking to them this morning during our little homeschool chat, and I was just like, hey, what are some things that you guys appreciate about me as a dad? I'm going to go do this little interview thing, and I want to hear some of the things that they would say. And some of these things that I wrote down, I added because of them. Our kids are going to be the most forgiving people to us. They give us the most grace out of anybody ever. And I've seen that play out time and time again. They're so quick to forgive and to give me grace when I humble myself and truly apologize when I am wrong. Now, it's a little bit harder when you're just like, you let pride well up and you're like, I'm not saying sorry for that. You're the kid. Like, I shouldn't have to do that. Never bids well. Our kids see everything that we do. They are little sponges, and they're just watching every little thing, and they're absorbing it all. And so be careful. Like, your actions speak so much louder than words. I've got a huge list. I could keep going. I mean, that's why I said, like, it's going for a book here.
Pick one piece of advice, like, to tell this audience that's watching, you know, current and future dads. Like, if you were to be like, okay, this is a one thing I want to tell you, what would it be?
Love your kids unconditionally, and you can never spend too much time with them. When I was working as a youth mentor, we would meet with the guys once a week for an hour, and then we would do a small group time. And at the end of the quarter, they would do little evaluations, and every time, almost no matter what, they would say, I wish I had more time. I wish there was more time spent together. Even with my kids, it's the same thing. I mean, we were created for a relationship. Being able to just really focus on those times. And, you know, it's always said, oh, kids grow up so fast. Like, one day they're, you know, knee-high to a grasshopper, and the next day they're like an adult getting married, and you're like, what happened? And it's true, I think, in a lot of ways, because, you know, time flies when you're having fun. And kids are a blast. And just enjoy them, I think goes a long ways.
Yeah,
so,
and those will probably be the moments that you will remember for a long time. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
It was really great to hear from you. All right, we'll see you in the next one, and dads, hats off to you.